So, I just saw Here the other day, and I thought it was a pretty enjoyable movie. Now, I know a lot of you are probably saying, "What? Here? What is that?" And that's exactly the point. This movie didn't really have a great marketing campaign, so there's a good chance none of you even know what this movie is or even heard of it. You probably have only have seen it from previews when going to the movies seeing other movies. But I decided to see it because, why not? I like giving movies a chance and see where they go, and it definitely wasn't because my girlfriend forced me to. So the whole thing about Here is it's a film that takes place in one camera angle, as in the entire plot revolves around this camera angle and the position it's in, and it doesn't move for the entire film, and I'll get to that in just a moment. The star of the show is, well, really it's Tom Hanks, but to be honest, there's other main characters, but also the main character is Tom Hanks. Basically, this is more of a time-lapse movie, if that makes sense. Like, it starts in the Stone Ages with the dinosaurs, and then skips to a time period where the Native Americans are roaming the lands. Then there's the colonial period with, William Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, and all that other stuff. Then it goes to the period of the 1940s, where there's a story about the Lazy Boy invention. Then a little bit forward, like post-World War II, where it involves the first main family of the film. Then it skips way ahead to 2020 when COVID was pretty much a thing. So yeah, basically this film encapsulates like 5 to 6 stories at the same time, and the way they do it is they start with, the Stone Ages with the dinosaurs, and then they kind of like spread out and they just go in this random order of stories to tell. And to be honest, there really isn't much to say about this film, and this review is probably this film review is probably going to be, different than my typical reviews. Usually I like to talk about the specifics about the film, and then I give, a good description of the film and talk about each point and give commentary, but I really just can't for the life of me do that for this film, because it's like trying to do 6, movie reviews in one. So, for the sake of my sanity, I'm going to do things a little bit different here, and this may be a shorter video than usual, but I'll basically give my general thoughts at the end. Overall, the structure of the story was very random. You kind of had to, have a decently good memory to be like, oh, that's right, it's this family with this issue, and then it quickly goes all the way back in time to the dinosaurs or the natives, and it's like, oh wait, yeah, that's right, and all of a sudden you're flung forward into the future. So yeah, you have to have a pretty good memory, and you pretty much have to follow along these multiple stories, all while, being at one camera angle. Like, the camera does not move. Overall, the main story is the post-World War II family, and it follows the story of Al, I believe his name was, who pretty much had a son, who is Tom Hanks' character, and they're pretty much the main family. Like, I would say 70% of this film involves him. Richard grew up being an artist, and then he eventually meets someone, and their relationship, is great and amazing at the start, but then as time kept going, because also this film, time travels and skips a lot of, moments in history, only showing really the highlights. It skipped towards the end where Richard's wife is like, hey, I have dementia, I don't know who you are, I don't love you, I want to travel the world, bye. And again, I'm skipping so many details, but to be perfectly honest, there really isn't a point of me describing, these stories, because it's really important that you kind of see this film for itself. I know I usually describe the film, but I think for this one, it's just best that you just go watch it and just know the story without, anyone really saying anything about it. The story with the Lazy Boy invention didn't really go anywhere, and that's going to be a common, trend for a lot of the plot lines. Even the modern day family and William Franklin story doesn't really go anywhere. I'm not joking, pretty much the only important story is Richard and his story. Everything else just kind of doesn't matter. The story with the Native Americans, that's kind of important because, there's this reference that happens, but it's it doesn't really go anywhere and it doesn't really help the plot. So that's one of the biggest things about this film that I just left, questioning, why did we have to follow this many stories and none of it really mattered. I will say there was an overarching theme about love in a way and family and all that, but that's really, I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest. It's really artificial in a way, or I don't even know the right word, but it's love. Okay, cool. Now, I'm sure to a lot of other people, sometimes you just want to see a nice little romantic, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I would have at least, liked there to be a point to all the multiple stories, because they definitely just didn't have a point except for Richard's story. And even then, there really wasn't a point to his story. At the end of the film, it's just a movie about his life in this one perspective. The acting I thought was pretty great. I thought everyone did amazing, though it's definitely like this is one of those movies where it's like you can definitely cheat because it's all in one perspective, so like you could just do whatever you want. You can have unlimited takes. It kind of reminds me of the movie Unfriended, where they all had the movie in one house and they could do literally whatever they want with the plot and the recordings that they have. They can just change it however. I kind of felt the same way with this film. Like, they can really just do whatever they want. They can really cheat however they want, especially when it comes to like reading the scripts and all that. They can just have something done off camera if they don't want to explain, or like if someone has issues like expressing something to the camera, they could just turn around and we can't do anything because the camera doesn't move. It is cool to see how like life changes, and it's like, during the scenes with the dinosaur, there was this cool boulder, a very nice boulder, and like it goes away and you're thinking to yourself, oh, that was a nice boulder. And then other stuff happens, like there's this building that is built in the background, and you kind of keep staring at it. It's like, oh wow, the building's still there, that's pretty cool. The editing was kind of also interesting because it wasn't just like a scene ends and another scene starts. It kind of like scenes kind of bleed into each other to like give the hint of where they're at. Also, another thing with the film, like you could tell what era it was based on the technology around the building, or like around the house if there was one. When it comes to cinematography, I really can't talk about it. It's one camera angle, and at the end the camera did change, but there really wasn't a point to it. The setting was interesting. They had all these sets that they used in one camera angle, but again, it's very limited to how like interesting that can really be because of the premise. I thought most of the characters were interesting. I talked about the acting. The characters themselves were interesting. I feel like Richard's story, like I keep saying, is pretty much the only interesting character and story. So yeah, I really just can't say anything more about this film. It did have a budget of $50 million, and it's not doing too great in the box office, but then again, that's really what happens when you don't market your film that well. I did see a lot of like people in their older ages seeing this movie, and I don't want to make any assumptions. Maybe there's just a lot of Tom Hanks fans. Who knows? Maybe they just see random movies like I do. I could be totally wrong, and I could just be an asshole. Regardless, they saw the film. I did too. I didn't regret watching it. I thought it was a pretty enjoyable watch. It was pretty nice, a pretty nice story. I don't think I want to read the book because I don't see a point in it. I would definitely change a lot about this film, specifically with the amount of families we're following, especially the modern one, because they're in 2020. Obviously COVID happened, and there was a family member who I'm not going to mention too much. A family member was lost to COVID, and it was definitely a sad moment. There was also just a moment where the dad character in the Modern Family was giving their son a lesson about what to do during a police stop, and I thought to myself, maybe some of this will come back later, but not really. It doesn't really happen. I'm not gonna say anything else that really spoils it. So yeah, I'd say watch it yourself if you really want to. Overall, I'd probably give this movie, I want to say, a very high and respectable 7.5, maybe an 8, but definitely nothing higher than that. If I had to put one, I'd just say 7.5. Overall, I didn't regret watching it. It was just a pretty nice film. I don't know how it's going to do in the box office or in the Oscars, but I'm hoping for the best. It did get Tom Hanks in it, so maybe Tom Hanks saw something in this project and he felt passionate about. But yeah, definitely, it's definitely not one of those movies you need to like go see immediately. Definitely, if you like watching some romance or romance movies, I'd say this is a fine movie to watch. But yeah, definitely an okay film. That's all I really want to say about this film. I don't want to go into specifics because it's just too much to go into, and there really isn't a point because there's just so much. Also, I want this to be a quick video as well. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Thank you all for watching. You guys have a great rest of your day.